Good afternoon, Rotarians. Welcome to the meeting today. It should be very interesting. There's two people in the room that, Gonzalo, I'm so glad you could join us. Could I buy you lunch sometime? Welcome back. And Ben Hunger, I thought you passed away. Welcome back to the club. We're glad to see you. Love to see more of you. We're going to have, just for you, Ben, we're going to have a great meeting today. We have Celia Williamson, who's going to talk about the partnership with human trafficking. And I have to thank everything that was done to prepare for this from the Mommy Rotary Club. And we'll a little bit more on that in a minute. For right now, if Mike George, would you come and do the reflection? And then Cindy Binkley, would you lead us in the pledge?
Let us pray. Dear God, as we assemble here today in a comfortable room with abundant food and resources, let us remember not only to give thanks, but to acknowledge and change the fact that many in our community do not have a safe space, do not have food to eat, and do not have resources to access. How a society treats its most vulnerable determines the importance it places on human life. Let us strive to be like you, God, respecting every living thing in your dominion. Let us provide a hand up for those in need, and remember to never judge those in desperation, but to offer them unending love and support. We thank you, God, for the opportunities we have to make a difference in the lives of someone in need. Amen.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. John Romer, are you in the room? Well, I want to thank you especially for Spartan Chemical and you guys being the sponsor for this month. So thank you for what you did, John. We're going to do welcomes and introductions. Christine, is it Benner? Christine is a very special Rotarian. She came all the way from Cleveland to spy on us. She's president-elect, and I think you're the treasurer, is that correct? Well, we want to welcome you to our club. While we're talking about visiting Rotarians, we have two special Rotarians. Sharon Trebek, who I've worked with for many years and is a very good friend. Would you stand up, Sharon? Sharon and I have partnered on many projects over the years, and it's just my good fortune that she's the president of the Mommy Rotary Club this year. Chaz Price. I'll introduce you now, if you don't mind. You're the president-elect for Mommy.
Correct.
You had a great hand in putting this whole program together today, and that's why we have so many Mommy Rotarians. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Okay. I would like to invite members who have guests today to come to the floor mic and introduce them.
President Tim, it is my pleasure to introduce Bob Clark Phelps. Bob will be our speaker in a few weeks talking about Citizens Climate Lobby and the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act. Thanks, Tim.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you.
President Tim, I'm glad to bring again Dennis Sherry. He was a guest last fall, but today is the last time he'll be a guest because he's put his application in for membership. So Dennis Sherry,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
President Tim, I have two guests today, and both are from the Marathon LPGA Classic. First, Madison Curl, and secondly, Paige Ottaviano. And if your companies are interested in sponsoring or entertaining guests at the Marathon LPGA, make sure you talk to them before the end of the meeting today.
Thank you. Welcome. Enjoy the meeting.
President Tim, it's my pleasure to introduce my daughter-in-law, Amy Myers, who is a lawyer with the Detroit Immigration Center. She's very keenly interested in the message today.
I hope you enjoyed this meeting today.
President Tim, I have two guests today. Crystal Glambin is
Crystal.
with the University of Toledo. She is with the Minority Business Assistance Center and Supply Chain Management. So she wanted to join us today as our first meeting. And then also, I introduced you earlier today to Jennison Waldron, who's a student at the university who is interested in helping us reactivate our Rotaract Club there.
Help me,
Very
is that
special.
Jennison or Genesee?
Genesis, like
Genesis.
the beginning.
The beginning. Welcome. We love Rotary leaders, especially young ones.
Thank you.
Come on. Welcome. Enjoy the meeting.
President Tim, I'm pleased to have a good friend that I've worked with over the years, Bill Gosling of Shoemaker Kendrick Loop. He's been in practice 50 years. He started when he was 10. So,
I'm so happy to know you have a friend.
President Tim and fellow Rotarians, this is Denise McCabe. She's an amazing photographer. She does portraiture and events, so if you have weddings and things like that, give her a call. She's amazing. Thank you very much.
Denise, welcome.
President Tim, my fellow Rotarians, I'm excited to introduce the newest member of our team at Thread Marketing Group and a former Rotarian. I'm just going to kind of float that out there. Jim Rush. He's the Vice President of Strategic Relationships at Thread Marketing Group.
Jim, welcome. Hey, Kevin, thank you for putting that program to purchase birthday cakes for children in foster care. That was a nice thing you did.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you. Where's my friend Max Reddish?
Hey, everybody.
Thank you, President
Max.
Tim.
Hey, Max.
I'm here to remind everybody that if you're interested in playing euchre, we'll be at the Toledo Club tonight at 7 o'clock. There'll be a $5 buy-in. Please show up a little bit early. We'd like to get gameplay going right at 7. Try to limit it to 2 hours so everyone can get home on time. That's about it. There'll be snacks and a cash bar. Please bring yourself, fellow Rotarians, your spouse, any friends, or prospective Rotarians. Everyone's welcome.
I'm thinking about bringing a dealer's visor that you see in Vegas.
That would be very welcome.
Okay. Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
We're going to have a short video on the power of one that emphasizes how important it is for all of us to play a role in bringing in new members. Walter, can you roll it? good music, actually. Might even dance to that. You know, just a brief aside. One of the best things in my life is you guys and Rotary, and for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is because of Rotary, I get to mostly remain sane. The fact is there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on out in the world that is disturbing and needs correcting. And I know that as long as I'm a Rotarian and participate in the stuff that this club does and international, I know that I'm making a contribution to make the world a little bit better and keep me a little saner. It's very important to bring in new members, and I'd like to encourage and thank all of those Rotarians out there on the floor that have done so far this year. And I know we'll all do what we can to help bring in new members. It is the power of one. I have an announcement. Cindy Binkley has agreed to and been elected for next year's to be vice president of this club. Cindy, are you around? There you are. There you are. You want to stand and be recognized? Thank you for what you're doing. Nominees, for directors, we have Scott Henshaw. You'll be the director. Where are you, Scott? I saw you somewhere. You want to stand and be recognized? Patrick Sheehan, I think, is not here today, but he's still a nice guy, and we thank him. I did see Kendra. Are you still here? Kendra had other things going on. Thank you to all of you for what you're doing. I would like to invite Cindy back to the podium and introduce a new member.
President Tim and fellow Rotarians, today I'm happy to introduce Troy Hendricks. He's currently the director of Visiting Angels for both the Toledo and Bowling Green locations. He started his career as a high school English teacher, and he continued on that path for about 15 years. And during that time, he became certified in teaching English as a second language. And once he got that certificate, he and his family moved to Spain, and they lived overseas there for about 8 years. They made a lot of memories during that time, but at some point he decided to come home. Instead of returning to teaching, when he returned to the States, he joined a fellow colleague out at Bittersweet Farms and worked with adults with autism. And during that time, he started to see a correlation between adults with autism and adults with dementia, and he he obtained a certification that he would start teaching workshops to people that worked with adults with autism and dementia. In 2016, he was recruited by Visiting Angels as their executive director, and Visiting Angels is a company that provides in-home care to seniors throughout Toledo and Northwest Ohio. Troy is an active member of the Sylvania Lions Club and sits on the board of Northwest Ohio Gerontological Association. He's very active with the international students at the University of Toledo, helping them with their English language and many other important aspects as they assimilate to life as a college student in the U.S., many times going out and helping them find clothes, furniture, things of that nature once they arrive here. He's interested in learning more about the International Services Committee and the Rotary Youth Exchange Program. I would appreciate it if you could help me welcome Troy to the Rotary Club of Toledo.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Toledo and to Rotary International. You're joining 1.2 million Rotarians around the world. This is the 10th largest club, and we've been around for a long time. We're very proud of all that we've accomplished, and we're expecting to be proud of all that you're going to accomplish as well. Troy, thank you. Welcome very much.
Thank you.
Candace, could you come to the podium, please?
President Tim and fellow Rotarians, it is my honor to introduce to you Erica Hollida, who is the Executive Director of the Toledo Public Schools Foundation. Erica has had a decade of nonprofit development experience and started her fundraising career at the United Way of Greater Toledo, leading the creation of the United Way Emerging Leaders. Many of you in the room are probably emerging leaders, so you can thank Erica for that. Erica is a dynamic, forward-thinking leader who is adept at working with multiple groups to support organizational objectives and find innovative solutions to the complex issues facing our community. She has served an instrumental role in organizational startups, turnarounds, and expansions, and has been the mastermind behind organizational rebrands, strategic planning, and the creation and implementation of a number of donor engagement activities, acquisitions, and initiatives. In her current role, Erica's leadership at the Toledo Public School Foundation has transformed the organization's mission and alignment with the school district. And this I can speak to personally. She has done amazing things for our district. Under her leadership, we have made major impact across the district. In just 2 years, nearly $200,000 has been invested in TPS students, teachers, and staff, and the impact has been felt by many. She has surpassed all of her fundraising goals, awarded scholarships totaling $85,000 to our students, awarded $50,000 in grants to our teachers and other staff for creative impact grants, provided over $40,000 in funding to several schools supporting initiatives outside the scope of TPS resources, one being Mo and Woe, which you guys are all familiar with, Young Men and Women of Excellence. Erica and her husband, Josh, live in Temperance, Michigan, with their son, Lincoln, and they're also going to welcome their second baby in March. I ask everybody to join me in welcoming Erica Hollida to Toledo Rotary.
Thank you, Candace. Erica, you are the newest Rotarian in the world, right this minute. I was listening to what Candace had to say, and we could always use another mastermind. So welcome to our club. You have 440 new friends. This can change your life, and I hope it does.
Thank you.
Welcome. You know, nobody's ever called me a mastermind. Just, Chaz Price, will you come to the podium and introduce our speaker? And once again, I would like to thank you for putting this together for us and the Mommy Rotary Club.
Thank you, President Tim, and thank you to the rest of the Toledo Rotary Board, and welcome to all the fellow Rotarians here. And as Tim said, it really was a group effort, and so if I may, can my contingent of Mommy Rotarians just stand up and be recognized? Thank you, guys. And again, my name is Chaz Price. I'm the president-elect for the Mommy Rotary Club, and I'm very honored today to be representing the group effort to bring Dr. Celia Williamson to the club today and to speak. Dr. Williamson has been engaged in anti-human trafficking work for over 25 years. She's published numerous articles on the subject and has delivered over 200 presentations at various conferences and events. She founded the first anti-trafficking program in Ohio in 1993 and directly worked with victims in Toledo for several years. She's completed numerous federally funded studies, written several articles and reports, edited 2 books on sex trafficking around the world, and completed her memoir as an anti-trafficking advocate. Additional accomplishments include founding the annual International Human Trafficking and Social Justice Conference, founding the Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition, chairing the Research and Analysis Subcommittee for the Attorney General's Human Trafficking Commission, and serving as president of the Global Association of Human Trafficking Scholars. In 2015, she became the director of Human Trafficking and Social Justice Institute at the University of Toledo to further the mission of combating human trafficking through research, education, and engagement. Dr. Williamson teaches social work practice, human trafficking, and culture and oppression courses to university students. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me to welcome to the stage Dr. Celia Williamson.
Yes, I'm short. Do I look taller now? That's good. Okay, so let's start. Thank you for inviting me. I am honored to be here to talk to people in my own community about issues. So, let's see. So what is human trafficking? It's modern day slavery, and that's what the U.S. federal government calls it. And I know we have a painful history with slavery in this country, but that's exactly what it is when someone's freedom is taken and someone economically benefits. That's what it is. And so slavery can happen with children, of course, is what we're experiencing a lot in our community, but also adult men and adult women. It involves people that are in other countries that are brought into the U.S. and sold into the labor of the sex trade, but it also involves American citizens that are trapped in the labor and the sex trade. So in 2000, the federal government passed the Anti-Trafficking Act, Trafficking Victims Protection Act. And what that was the U.S.'s first acknowledgement that we have these slaves on U.S. soil. And they talked about two different types of trafficking: labor trafficking, and that's people who are involved in some sort of work where force, fraud, or coercion is involved. And these people are forced to work for little or no pay at all and under severe threat that their families will be hurt or that they will be hurt. Sex trafficking, same thing. Anybody involved in the commercial sex trade where there's force, fraud, or coercion are victims of the crime of sex trafficking. Of course, if you are under the age of 18, under the federal law, you don't have to prove force, fraud, or coercion. If you are involved in the commercial sex trade and you're under 18 in this country, you are automatically a victim of this crime. So you can be 15 years old and say, well, this is what I choose to do with my life and I want to do this. In the U.S., we say you cannot consent to commercially sell yourself while you're underage. You are a child in need of care, not a delinquent in need of incarceration. So that's been a big change. Labor trafficking, let me go back. So I want to talk about the number of victims. So around the world today, there's an estimate of about 40.3 million slaves in the world today. About 403,000 of those are estimated to be on U.S. soil at any given moment, and that's according to the Global Slavery Index. In Ohio, I first did the research about 10 years ago. There's a new study from the University of Cincinnati that came out last year that said there are about 1,000 victims, domestic minors, U.S. American citizens who are teens, that are trapped in the sex trade any given year in Ohio. In Toledo, we see about 70 of those victims a year, but the health department did a study where they asked kids, have you traded sex for money, items, drugs, a place to stay, or something like that? And there were about 700 kids who said that they had to trade sex for something. And under that definition, they are also victims of commercial sexual exploitation. So in 2006, Toledo got its own FBI task force. And so they were dispatching about 17 of those at the time, all to big cities except Toledo. Toledo got earned its own task force that has been here every single year. They've rescued over 260 children themselves and also convicted over 30 traffickers just from our local community. Now, people say, something is happening in Toledo. Like, why are all these victims coming from Toledo? What's going on? Like, is it the highway system? A lot of people will tell you it's because of the highways that we have here. But every city has highways, so that makes no sense. What is going on in Toledo is that we're actually talking about it, we're actually doing something about it, and we say every single child in our community is important. And so guess what? Toledo is no longer anything special. Trafficking is happening in Dayton, in Columbus, in Cincinnati, in Chicago, in LA, and Lima, and every place you can look at has trafficking. And now they are doing their work, and they're able to identify victims. We know that the top 3 illegal enterprises in the world are drugs, guns, and human trafficking. So when I go to a community and they're like, oh, we don't have any trafficking here, I'm like, well, do you have drugs that are being sold here? Oh, yeah. What about guns? Oh, yeah. But you don't have trafficking? No. So it's a matter of being educated and becoming aware. And I'll tell you how we got the FBI task forces. They called me and said, we're going to talk about child trafficking in America because you're invited. We have 75 people because in 2005, December 2005, you can look it up, there were over 20 kids found in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania that were selling sex at a truck stop, and all 20 of those kids were from Toledo. So how does a community miss 20 kids and nobody knows that those kids are missing? And that's really because we think of them as runaways, and they're not runaways. And the police will come to your house and say, well, when's the last time they ran away? Or did you have an argument? And, and so they convince the parent that maybe it's a runaway situation. In Toledo today, we have about 1,100 runaways per year. And we have 1 Toledo police officer assigned. That's why runaway is the #1 risk factor. So what are we doing about it? We went to the sheriff and we said, Sheriff, will you help us look for runaways? And the sheriff said, yeah, I will. I would love to. So the sheriff, myself, mental health, TARTA has been uniquely involved, started getting together and going around and trying to gather funds from different organizations, and we're raising the money. We got money from the governor, we got commitments all over town, and we are going to start looking for runaways, and we are going to get them involved in programming. I have to get off this thing. It's driving me a little bit nuts. Keep feeling like I'm going to fall. So labor trafficking is people who are working in restaurants or beauty salons or doing manual labor or landscaping, any of those types of programs. And so wherever you see an incredible deal, we're taught as Americans, like, get the best deal, get the cheapest price. But if the deal looks too good, it's like you kind of got to question, how are they paying for all this labor? So, if you had chocolate, if you had sugar, if you had coffee today, it's highly likely that there were some slaves that worked for you today around the world. So you can always go to slaveryfootprint.org, take the little survey about what you wear, what you eat, what you do, and it will tell you an estimate of how many slaves worked for you today. So we ask people that are charitable to consider buying fair trade, because when you buy fair trade, that's your guarantee that everybody along that supply chain, even the guy picking the cocoa beans in the field, has been paid a fair wage. And yes, it may be $2 or $3 more, but you will write a check for charity. But this is not charity, this is empowerment. This is ensuring that everybody can take care of their families and be able to pay their bills all around the world. So we can just ask you to consider looking for the fair trade label and purchasing those things. There are apps you can download that will tell you which hotel rooms to stay in and which not to stay in. For instance, there are certain hotels that have signed on to train their workers all around the world to identify trafficking victims. And there are hotels that decided not to sign because it's profitable. So use your money as your power. Speak with your money. Let's see. So sex trafficking is like stripping, prostitution, lap dancing, anything in the commercial sex trade where if adults are involved and there's force, fraud, or coercion, that's trafficking, or if kids under 18 are involved. So a lot of things we've been hearing on, Facebook and on news and other, it's all this sensationalized kind of trafficking. People are being snatched, Be careful if you go to a Kroger or there's a white van going around snatching people and trafficking them, or, they're tying zip ties to your bumper, and when you get out, they snatch you and traffic you. Well, let me tell you why that is so not the case. And it's dangerous when we think that way, because when we put our eye over here on this ball, we're missing all this over here. Trafficking is not about snatching and grabbing it. That's called the crime of kidnapping. Trafficking, if I'm a trafficker, I'm interested in making as much money as I possibly can and taking as least amount of risk as I possibly can. Low risk, high yield, that's the business. And it's a business. Supply are the victims, demand are the customers, distributors are the traffickers. So if I snatch a kid off the street, I'm taking a high risk and I only have a little bit of time to make money. So that makes no business sense. I'm interested in kids who are vulnerable. I'm interested in manipulating kids to tell them I love them. Here's your new group of friends to belong to, so that I can get that kid to participate in their own victimization along with me, because then it's low risk and long amount of money, long yield. So I can get that kid to say they're going to spend the weekend with their friend, and then I traffic them all weekend, put them back into their roles to go back to school. That's what I'm interested in, the long-term money. And unfortunately, there's so many vulnerable kids that I don't need to go snatch a kid. There are so many kids that need mom figures, so I'm going to send an adult type of woman. There's so many kids that need peers to belong to, so I'm going to send friends for you to belong to. So many kids that want a boyfriend, so I'm going to send a 16-year-old boy that's smelling good, looking good, walking good with a car. I'm going to manipulate your vulnerabilities. I'm going to end up chaining your head and chaining your heart. I'm not going to chain your wrists to a bed, because that kid's always trying to get away. But if I can chain your heart, if I can chain your head, you're not going anywhere and you're not going to tell anybody anything. And that's what real trafficking. So when you are all worried about kids being snatched and grabbed, I'm over here making all kinds of money right under your nose. That's why it's important to know the realities of trafficking. Trafficking is a $150 billion business around the world. So why don't victims want to get away? They feel helpless. Sometimes they think they're in love with their traffickers. It's called Stockholm Syndrome or trauma bonding, when the only voice you hear is that trafficker, and the body has a great way of trying to survive by relating and becoming loyal to the person that is responsible for my ability to keep breathing. So I might not even know the city I'm in. I might not even know that there has been laws passed that would stand with me and protect me against this other person. So the kids that are vulnerable in our community and across the United States are kids in poverty, kids that are involved in child protection or juvenile court, kids that are youth of color, LGBTQ youth, homeless and runaway, kids who use substances. So you start to see this pattern of kids who are very vulnerable, and traffickers will step to them, whether in person or online. As soon as you reveal your vulnerabilities, that's when I got you. And online, that's how people do it. They understand. You show your vulnerabilities online. You say, I need love. I need people to think I'm attractive. And you don't say that, but you do selfies. Oh, look at me. What do you think? What do you think? Well, girl, I think you look good. Well, my mom won't let me I can't wait till I leave this house. Well, I can help you do that. So they're going to step to you with the vulnerabilities that you have, and they're going to try to fill those vulnerabilities. So where are victims sold? Well, supply is taken wherever demand is. So casinos, we always find victims at the Super Bowl, Republican and Democratic national conventions, online, truck stops, sporting events, strip clubs, massage parlors. Wherever you find the demand, that's where you're going to find the supply. So who recruits? Well, it's not the creepy guy living under the bridge. right? It's not that shady character, because everybody knows to stay away from the creepy guy under the bridge. I mean, these are people that look very safe. These are under other 14-year-old girls that are recruiting 14-year-old girls, 16-year-old boys. These are adult-looking mother figures, or that cool adult woman that you always wanted to hang out with. They're very safe-looking people. And, where do they recruit people? They don't recruit people like in the seedy bus station or the back alley. I remember when I was young, I used to watch like the after-school specials, and they'd show a kid getting on a bus and going to New York City and then drugged and trafficked into prostitution, and all I learned then was like, don't get on a bus and go to New York and you're good. But today, it doesn't happen like that. It happens at very safe places, libraries and skating rinks and friends' houses and, malls as you're walking with your friends. It's very safe places, very safe-looking people, and that's how it's successful. So, recruitment process is about manipulation and giving gifts and compliments and building that self-esteem up. And then a process of breaking that self-esteem down and creating great dependence on that trafficker. So it's not just the trafficker and the kid, but there are all these players involved, the recruiters, the watchers, the people that take you to the strip club or the truck stop and they watch you to keep you safe, but really they're watching the money to make sure the money gets back to the traffickers. There are groomers, the people that buy you the clothes and do your hair and get you ready. And that's why in Ohio, we actually have all of our beauticians in Ohio, if you're licensed, you must have 1 hour of human trafficking education. I mean, we try to be as clever because we have to be as competitive as our traffickers. We've trained, for instance, every TARTA bus driver in Toledo. And there's information for kids to call in every single bus. We have educated every EMT driver. We've educated gas company employees, health department inspectors. We try to think of who are our eyes and our ears in the community that can learn about these indicators or red flags and then make a report. So some of our responses in the community, besides education, is we have our Lucas County Human Trafficking Coalition, and we meet every month, and we helped to push laws, put laws in place. So we have 3 laws that we passed in Ohio to protect kids and to protect foreign victims that are here on U.S. soil and to protect other adults. We have an annual conference that is now going into its 17th year. It is the largest conference on human trafficking in the United States and the oldest. We have about 2,000 attendees, about 80 presenters that come. We have a whole high school day just for high school students to come out to the university and learn about human rights and human trafficking and social justice, and they love it. And let me tell you how we started the conference. 17 years ago, I said, well, we need to know what other people are doing in their communities, and they need to know what we're doing. What's that called? And somebody said, a conference. Oh, yeah, let's have one. And they said, well, we don't have any money. We're not legitimized. Who are we? And I said, well, 1, we never have any money. And 2, do we know a student that can put up one of those fancy websites? So he said, okay, student, put up the website. Say it's a national conference. And people said, well, we can't just do that. I said, yes, we can. Watch. So we did it. They said, well, what if nobody comes? Well, if nobody comes, then we just go back to our jobs. If nobody comes, nobody knows. So who cares? So we put up the website. People came from Boston, LA, Florida. They came from Columbia University, from Street Outreach. They were so hungry to get in the room and share. They paid their own airfare, they paid their own hotel, and they presented. We thought we'd have one room, one day, every hour. We ended up 2 days, 3 rooms every hour. And then people said, so you got to do this next year. This is awesome. And I said, wow, okay, I don't know, I'm kind of tired, But so each year we ran around to all the churches and our social service friends, and we said, we had to get materials for the conference. So we said, how many copies can you make before you get in trouble? Okay, you make 100. Okay, you make 100. And that's how we started the conference. About the fourth year, and my family cooked, my mom cooked, my sister cooked. Finally, university came over. They said, "What the hell is going on? What is this? And you can't have your family cook. You have to go through catering. There's liability." And we said, "Oh, okay. We didn't know we couldn't do that. So we'll fix it." And we just kept going and going. And then people started calling and they said, "Wow, whatever you're doing at the university, it's amazing. You guys are innovative. Your mission is to improve the human condition. And I love the way you're defining the human condition." And central administration said, well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's what we do. We're like that, you know. So, so then they started to support the conference. Today we have a conference planner that plans the entire conference. It's a wonderful conference. So if you ever have a chance, please come to the conference. We will charge you money, but all of the money that you spend is going to stay in our community. All the people that stand on their feet 12-hour days are volunteers, and all that money goes to support our coalition and goes to support our University Institute to continue to do the work that we're doing. So we also developed a PATH model, Partners Against Trafficking in Humans, where we coordinate all the services that our victims get per year. And then we study it at the university, and we feed it back into the coalition to say, do a little more of this, do a little less of this, so that we become more effective and more effective. We just started a free scholarship program, and those are for survivors. So our goal is to move victims to survivors, but then move survivors to thrivers, who you would have been had you never been trafficked. And so to do that, we offer scholarships for our survivors to go back to school. They can go to a certification, they can go to a training program, or they can go to a university. They can go to UT, or they can go anywhere that they desire to go. And we provide them with tutoring and academic coaching and refurbished laptops. And we just support them. And we've gone and gotten previous survivors that are now very successful women in the community, and they've come back to help these women and men get through these programs and become the people that they needed to always become. And I told you just recently we started this runaway program, which is going to be awesome because we're going to look for the runaways, which runaway is the highest risk factor for sex trafficking, and we're going to get them involved in social services, long-term intensive social services. So be looking hopefully around Valentine's Day, because we want to come out with a press conference and we want to tell the community we will be looking for runaways because they're important, we love them, and happy Valentine's Day to all the people in the community. So we're hoping that we can do that around that time. This is a physical timeline of what happens to kids as they go through their trafficking experience, just so that we know kids aren't out there just involved in the commercial sex trade, having a great time. You know, kids are suffering complex trauma that lasts often a lifetime. So you see the beginning of this young girl, and then you see what happens to her over time. And we had one trafficker that said, I'm going to tell you the entire trafficking experience, and I'm going to do it in one sentence, and he did. He said, with the young girls, you promise them heaven. I'll love you, we can travel places, we'll make money, we'll get married one day and settle down. So you promise them heaven, and then they follow you to hell. And that's exactly the trafficking experience. So I want to let you know that if you are interested in getting more education on trafficking, you can always join our coalition. We take all members. We have dads that have daughters that have joined. We have professionals. We have the FBI task force. There are a lot of people. We have about 80 members, and about 50 people show up every month. So if you're interested in that, please join us. If you are busy, but you still want to gain the knowledge, we have a free podcast called Emancipation Nation. You can download it, you can listen to it on the way to work, you can listen to it while you're jogging or biking or walking, and you can get the education that you want to get. Also, if you're further interested, I didn't put it on here because I'm a terrible salesperson, but I did write a book and then forgot to add it. But I wrote a book called Seat at the Table, and it's about trafficking that has occurred in Toledo, and then my work along the years to work with victims and develop programs. Let's see. Anything else? Oh, I'm just going forward. So I wanted to end with my manifesto from the book, and it simply says, when we care. When we care, we can work to make sure a rescued child can fall asleep every night without fear of being raped again and forced to work. We can work to make sure a foreign survivor feels at home in our country and in the world. And we can make sure laws are passed that not only help one, but help the many. When we care, we can work to help a survivor find the courage to finally testify against her trafficker. When we care, we can work to make sure a 12-year-old knows that he is loved and wanted, regardless of how hard he had to work for little or no pay in the past or what he has to give you now. And we can help a woman who was sold to the highest bidder talk about it for the first time. When we care, we can make sure a teen respects and appreciates her body and dreams of what her mind can do. We can make sure a traumatized and trafficked woman sees past her demons. And we can help a man that was beaten and forced to work feel like a man again. When we care, we can make policymakers change laws, educate the community so they know what to look for and how to identify victims, and require systems to respond effectively. When we care, we can make sure a drug-addicted survivor puts down the needle and deals with her past. We can make a faith-based community use their time to put their love and faith into practice. We can make a family forever grateful for the return of their recovered daughter. When we care, we can make forgotten people who live in the shadows be recognized, receive justice, and reintegrate them back into their communities. And we can help a survivor who has been rescued celebrate a lifetime of freedom. And we do this every day. Because Martin Luther King cared, we have civil rights for all people. Because Cesar Chavez cared, we work to improve the treatment of migrant workers. Because Harvey Milk, Susan B. Anthony, Rosa Parks, Gloria Steinem, Audre Lorde, and Gandhi cared. Because you care. That's why you're a Rotarian today. You all know that in 2019, we worked to convict 3 pastors. 2 got life in prison, 1 got 17 years. The victim who testified in that case ended up feeling very empowered that she had testified. She read a Bible quote and looked at the pastors while she did it. And when she walked off that witness stand, she said, "I felt powerful." By the time she got to her car, she said, "I'm excited. I'm free. What can I do with my freedom?" That student makes me emotional because that student is a social work student today at the University of Toledo because she wants to work to help other people. I love that. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. And does anyone have any questions? Take just a few so I don't take up too much of your time, but does anyone have questions? If you do, just please, please, please reach out to me and I will get you whatever it is that you need. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Celia. I'm Mari Davies, and I'm the chairman of the Anne Frank and the World Fund of the Toledo Community Foundation. And we've been a proud sponsor of the annual conference for a number of years. And I will just tell you, because I have attended that conference as a sponsor, our Youth Services Committee needs to have that experience. They need to spend time at that conference to watch the incredible minds and the incredible commitment that members of our community and the rest of the country who come to this conference share in order to help with this issue.
Yes.
I have one of my questions is, how supported do you feel you are and this cause is in terms of the local entertainment industry?
Mm-hmm.
I know you talk about training and so forth, but are you feeling supported? Is that improving? And where do you see the weak links so that maybe we can help? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And at the conference, we've had so far 47 states and 36 countries represented. So it is an amazing conference. I'm always looking for more support, of course, from the churches, because I think churches have a lot of power in terms of helping to educate their congregations. But any form of media entertainment that helps us push the information out there is also always a gap, in my opinion. And we're always trying to do more with less. So with our scholarships, we give $2,000 each and refurbish laptop. That's just enough to get someone in the door. But we wanted to start, and so we're always in need of that. But anyone, we've been very frugal, so anyone that steps forward and says, I might be able to do this, or I would like to join the coalition, we figure out ways for them to be very helpful and very useful. So I'm inspired by all of the support that we already have. People say, this is such a dark topic, like, doesn't it depress you? No, it inspires me, because I focus on people like you who are doing the wonderful things to learn and get involved in various ways. So yeah, to me, it's all a bunch of gaps, and we got a lot more work to do, but we also have so much stuff that we're doing in Toledo as well. So thank you, I appreciate it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. I'm just wondering, from a practical standpoint, in terms of interceding or an intervention, if I would see something like this, it would seem that it would be fluid and it'd be moving fairly fast, just from a practical standpoint. That's what I was curious about.
Yeah, we have people that have stepped forward, developed organizations, grassroots agencies. They're always under threat of not being around the next year. But we work very closely with them, and we take the role of coordinating people. And as you might know, in your businesses, it's very difficult to get people to work and play well together. And so that's the goal, so that we can build this good continuum of care and remind people it's not about us, it's about the mission. So focus on the mission, not the personalities. And so we have various interventions from people who need basic needs and housing and mental health services and trauma counseling, and those things are in place and getting stronger.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Thanks for your presentation. It's very educational, and thank you for your hard work. One of the tabs earlier in your presentation regarding forced labor mentioned candy sales and magazine sales, and it reminded me of an interaction that I had with a young man earlier this year at a Kroger parking lot, where he was going from person to person, car to car, after dark, with no adult supervision, asking to support his football team with no documentation. And it seemed a little sketchy, and I was wondering if I should have been worried about that and what the best way to handle that situation would have been.
Yeah, I've had the same situation where a young man has approached me, and it's been a lot of domestic minors, American citizens that are doing this, and there has been cases where they have to give the money over to the trafficker. Of course, there's other cases where kids are just trying to get money. And so what I do in this situation is I told this one young man, yeah, come by my office tomorrow with your documentation, and I'd be happy to give you some money toward your scholarship or your summer camp or whatever he was doing. Of course, he never showed up. So I don't know which it was. But there is a hotline number, and that number is 888, you can look it up, 888 888-373-7888. And it is the national hotline number. And anytime you have any suspicions, you can call that number, give them information. You don't know the name, it's okay. You just give them everything you know. You can do it anonymously. Because we have an FBI task force, you don't know, as soon as you hang up, they're going to call that task force and they're going to give them that information. And you're not sure if your piece could be the piece in the puzzle. So we always ask people to please, please, please err on the side and just call the hotline and give that information. So, yeah, that's what I would suggest. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Dr. Williamson, that was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
I learned a lot, and not all of it good, but I'm glad that there are people doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
In recognition of you joining us today, we would like to offer you a book on the history of Toledo.
Yes.
And we're going to make a contribution in your name for Polio Plus World Fund. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's
There
awesome.
you go.
Thank you. This is awesome. And you know, I've lived in Toledo all my life, but I've been doing trafficking work for 26 years, and I'm only 27, so I will need to read the history. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. We have 4 meetings at the conclusion of today's meeting. First is Community Services meeting in North Cape. The Peace Committee's meeting in Presque Isle. International Services is meeting in the Governor's Boardroom. And the Membership Committee is meeting in the Board of Directors room. We have no meeting next week in honor of Martin Luther King Day. And our following meeting is January 27th, where we have Lee J. Strang from who's going to talk about Northwest Ohio Classical Academy. And I understand that Chuck is here.
President Tim, my job, for those of you who are visiting, is to send everyone out with a smile, but sometimes there's an issue that comes to pass that somebody informs me about that I feel like you really need to know about this, because a lot of us travel, and if you ever travel out west, well, there's a chance of an encounter, and so we're going to show a video. It's very quick, so make sure with your chair that you can see this, because it could save your life someday. So, Professor, if you could run this video.
Thank you. Let's check that stop.
Just putting the feeder hose into the back of the machine. We're getting water directly from the lake over there. Is there a blanket or get like a warm?
Hey guys, we've got company. Let's just move away from that.
It's a bear. It's a bear.
It's fine. We're fine. Just calmly walk over here. We're fine. You too, sir. Now, please. Let's just give the bear a minute. He's going to move on. Just let the bear be.
Whoa, what's...
Oh.
Incredible. Sitting in my chair. Sitting in my chair.
That is insane. It got that clean on a cold cycle.
Okay, can we go back to work now, Mr. Ranger?
The bear's now leaving. Okay, gang. It's clear for us to go back to set.
It's a polar bear.
All I wanted to do is use the washing machine.
I wasn't scared.
You were.
No. My batteries are gonna run out.
There's not much we can do but sit here.
Thank you, Chuck. We are adjourned.
Welcome.